Welcome to the second episode of the Hali Hewa Podcast with your host Abigael Kima. Throughout COP27, we will be interviewing people from across the globe, discussing various issues that is affecting them and issues that are important to them as negotiations are in process. Today we are joined by an amazing guest on set, Jodahi. I hope I'm not butchering your name though. He's a Youth and Environmental Activator from Ethiopia. He's an applied biologist and environmental and sustainable development specialist through his education. He is the founder and marketing and sales director, Farmboo, Ethiopia, with his partners, a bamboo-based pots and vertical farming shelves. He's also the director of Enfluencers community in Ethiopia, which works on environmental awareness creation and capacity building. Welcome.
That's a mouthful. Thank you.
It's lovely to have you here. So tell us about your work. You're doing quite a lot. So when you started and how it's been so far.
First and foremost, thank you for the invitation. It's an honor. Jodahi has been working on this for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
But Enfluencers and Farmboo in general started off in the past 3-4 years. But it kind of started off from COP. So around on COP27, which happened in Bonn, I had the opportunity to work on a lot of environmental projects, but even though that's part of my work, or even though I have identified as an environmentalist for quite some time, I didn't think it was a thing, I didn't know that people really cared about it that much, even though it was the Ministry of Environment in our country. So I was the intern and represented Ethiopia as a youth delegate at COP27. And I saw how so much people out there really love the environment, but can't seem to put a connection. So a lot of people that are working on climate change are in various sectors. For example, finance, science, engineering, and so many forth. And they couldn't come up with like a bridge so that they could have a connection. So I was fortunate enough to go back to home, and I was just thinking how I could really come up with something. So Jodahi's Influence became a thing. So Jodahi's Influence was a show I started just like this, trying to expose what was happening all over the world for my community, which was the youth, the Ethiopians, and the urban youth especially. So Jodahi's Influence became like a show like this one to show people what was going on. But a lot of people wanted to be part of Jodahi's Influence. And because my name was slapped on it, and I didn't want to feel like I am a leader and that's my own thing only. I brought a few of my friends that are working on environmental issues and that are not working on environmental issues to come up with something that is beyond Jodahi's Influence, and Enfluencers became a thing. So Enfluencers became a community that now where people from all walks of life that are working on environmental issues coming together on the same table, on the same discussion tables, to come up with collaborative ideas. We have a lot of events so that people can connect, called E-Connect. Basically that's what Influencers is for, which I, at this point, direct. And for my personal livelihood, I've never wanted to start a business in my life. But if I was planning to, I knew I was going to start a sustainable thing. So bamboo being one of the most sustainable plants, I wanted to use that with my partners into becoming something even much more greater than it is, which was vertical farming, pots and plants. It's a lot of things that we try to do. I mean, people would check it out further if they really want to see.
And why is this work important for you? Why environment?
I was having this conversation yesterday with someone else, and why not environment? That's the question that I got asked back. But in all seriousness, my mom slapped me once. and she slapped me because when I was very young, we were going off to church, and she gave me a chewing gum. And when I, unleashed from the wrappers, and I just put it in my mouth and threw away the wrapper, before it hit the ground, I was already slapped. So I think a lot of mothers out there could connect with this story.
Yeah.
At some point, they have slapped their kids because of that reason.
Yeah.
And how sustainable our parents are. So after that, I became the person that always collected trash in my pockets, in my bag. But I didn't think it was much of it. Day by day, I started learning further and further about it. And as you said earlier on, I'm an applied biologist. And my second year, I started learning about the environment further, more than my grade school. Then my heart was taken already. So I have a lot of climate anxiety, which I feel like there needs to be more work for the climate.
Yeah.
And I still want to focus on the good things that are happening in the world.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of progress that needs to be made that is supposed to happen in these meetings, as well as in our households.
Yeah. And then you talked about climate anxiety. So what is that one thing that makes you anxious?
That we don't come to a decision soon enough, because the clock doesn't go backwards. It only goes forwards.
Yeah.
And even though we are celebrating youth and a lot of things out here in the pavilions and in the meeting rooms, it's still the 27th one.
Yeah.
We have known about climate change for starting from like 1955 or something. There was a conversation about CFCs and so many other gases out there starting from that time. We have fixed the ozone layer, but that's not the only issue that we have.
Yeah.
So even though I appreciate what the world is trying to do by being collaborative, it's taking quite a lot of time, even from the meetings that I've been joining today. It's just a lot of back and forth, a lot of groups trying to point out various things, but action is always needed.
Yeah, and I was having this conversation with someone as well, and I said, for me, if there's no implementation, then I don't see why we keep coming here. Why should we make new commitments, yet there's so many others that is not fulfilled? And same as you, it's been this is the 27th meeting, and when you go back home, there's hardly, like you really can't see change happening in communities. They're still going through the same issues. So I completely agree with you on that one. I was going to ask whether this is your first COP, but clearly it's not.
This is my second one.
Yeah.
But to be honest, you can say it's my first because it's been almost 4 years since I came to COP, because I promised myself I did not want to come back until I start something in my home country, so that at least when I come back, at least I can say I'm doing this, my team is doing this, our community is trying to do this, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I think it's really important. I come from the same school of thought because COP26 was my first COP, and it was so challenging, man. I had nothing. As an activist, still passing information and creating awareness, but I felt like I needed to have something of my own. That's why I started the podcast as a platform to communicate.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
It's okay.
But I don't know, you didn't ask me because I don't know, because it didn't come up, but I call myself a Youth and Environmental Activator.
Yeah.
Because first and foremost, when you use the word activist, it's kind of overused these days.
Yes.
And I believe everybody knows, including people that are not literate, knows about environmental issues in their own way. It just needs to be activated for themselves in one way or the other, so that they could understand it in their own language, maybe in their own perspective, so that they can translate it in their day-to-day activities.
Yeah.
Because of course, activism really works in a lot of places, but especially in countries like ours, there's a lot of important subjects that we're still trying to figure out in our home countries. And at least if we start from our own households, from our own homes, starting from our own mothers, I think there's more progress that we could make in small scale, but collectively it could be much more bigger.
Yeah, I agree. So how would you compare your experience at COP23 and your experience this past few days? Is there anything different? Is it more frustrating? Is it more exciting?
So at COP23, I was here representing my country as a youth delegate, but I didn't know what was going on. Even though for that year, we were, as Ethiopians, we were the chair of LDCs, least developed countries, and the Climate Vulnerable Forum. We're both chairing that committees, but so I had the exposure for a few ideas about COP, but when you come to COP, it's just like an uppercut, a slap, a hit on your groin, and so many things all at the same time. And nobody can train you to come to COP. That's what I'm saying. And a lot of people are veterans in COP. A lot of people come every year to talk about things and a lot of activities. And it's overwhelming sometimes that a lot of people are this committed to it, but we still have not much progress that we have made. So in COP23, I feel like it's one of the most, I think the most people were divided in my perspective. And I think after the COP26, which was at the Glasgow, there's a little bit of optimism that this could be the implementing, at least beginning of implementation could happen. I was really happy that I've seen a lot of heads of states to speak in behalf of their own countries, but speaking and not meeting up with them really has divergent ideologies, because we haven't met our heads of states, even though he was here, you know? I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of issues out there, and I hope I have a better one now, because I'm much more equipped with what I wanted to see, with what I want to learn. So that helps much more better. Like, it helps me in a much more better way. But yeah, I think this one will be much more better than COP23, because COP23 I only stayed for 1 week, and I hated all of the days, even though the people were nice and everything. But it really sucked for me then.
So, are you following anything specific here at COP, and do you have some sort of expectation that you'd like to talk about?
So a lot of people are following up on loss and damage right now. But I feel like when there's a lot of fuss about something, I don't want to focus on that only. There's a lot of technical issues that are still not sorted out for the Kyoto Protocol. Can you imagine? Like, this is before even Paris Agreement. And the Paris Agreement, of course, the rule book is done and everything, but still a lot of technicalities that needs to be done. So I'm really interested in following up on those technical ones, you know, in green energy, in capacity building, and in some way a little bit of adaptation in some finance aspect of. So, but besides that, as I've understood from the previous COP, at the COP23 I was at, I didn't follow anything. I was just like running around. So is there a meeting here? Is there a meeting there? Is there a pavilion that I could see? But now I'm much more cooled down. I go to the things I want to go to. I don't drag people as I used to. I used to drag people to go to somewhere, but it's like a personal thing, personal drive to each topic. So that's pretty much what I want to do.
I mean, I think for everyone who's going to a COP for the first time, you're moving around from one meeting to another. I remember last year I sat in a meeting, I didn't get anything they were talking about. It was on Article 6. And being my first time, you can imagine how difficult that was. So I guess after you come for the second time, you kind of have an idea of what you should be doing. So
I think they don't even know what they're talking about sometimes. They just want to support or deny, or it's just sometimes it's annoying to be even in those meetings. But you see how people work. But when you represent a country, when you represent your own home, it's much more heavy burden. You know, that's why I kind of understand why even when countries that are developed, speaking on behalf of their country, trying to defend their sovereignty, because not everybody wants to pay, but we're like demanding. So I feel like there's a lot of pointing fingers on most of the meetings, and a more unified chairmanship from Egypt is really expected, because we need to collaborate. We need to be able to say, okay, even though you guys told us you guys are about to give us this amount of money and you could not provide that, have we done something with the amount of money that you've given us? And this is what we have done. Can you please give us more? I feel like that's where we detach from the reality. People that are working on the ground from the funds that are coming from the developed countries or from the umbrella group. Is it really being implemented? Or is it just asking for more money, for more meetings, for more places so that we could have this type of meetings? It's just, is it implemented? While we're asking that, we're not historically pollutants and everything. Of course, we have to defend our sovereignty. That we haven't done this, it's not our issue. But it is our continent. And our world.
And at the end of the day, we are the ones who suffer. Because if you ask me, I have more hope in community doing something about the climate crisis compared to expecting this meeting to actually bring change. So if I can do my work in communities, then so be it. Because I feel like there is more hope there. Because you can see people coming together and trying to really create change within their communities.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I keep on talking too much.
Yeah, you said you like talking, so.
So I was talking to this veteran, one of the organizers that actually brought me here at SIF. I was talking to the Ethiopian representative, and she was discussing with me how she is so fed up with a lot of conversations that are happening in COP. And I told her, I think what really grounds me right now is that even though I'm able to talk, I am still going to be working on the ground. I'm still going to be going to the communities to clean. I'm still going to be planting trees. It's not only just talks or it's not only just quotes, but it's also going to the communities and seeing your small intervention could potentially change somebody's life. I have so many stories to tell where communities have changed their ideologies because they are being the beneficiary. They are having the benefits of sustainable living.
And you've talked about being an activator, and I think that's a new term and a new understanding for me, and I actually really like it. So you do this in Ethiopia, right? Would you say the communities are receptive to the conversations you have with them, and are they actually, implementing? Because I know we only act from a point of information. If I don't know, then I really don't see the need of doing anything. Like, if I don't understand why I need to plant trees, then I'm not going to plant trees. And as you said, activating it from a personal level. So how has that been for you? And would you say the communities are receptive and are doing something about it?
Yeah, that was a very nice question because one of the things I reconstructed in my mind is environmentalism.
Yeah.
Because we come to a lot of events or even go to projects and believe that environmentalism only is limited to a few things. Planting trees, cleaning up or something, which you're used to. But technically, it's also being responsible. It's also being sustainable in what you use. it's also being vigilant and in every sense of that word.
Yeah.
Because when you go to maybe a farmer and explain to him or her that you have to plant a certain seed because it might be better for your land,
Yeah.
he already knows what's good for his land, or she already knows, you know?
Yeah.
You don't have to tell them that. But in a way where they understand it and they are going to be beneficiary, should be incentivized. It could be also capacitated
Yeah.
as much as possible. And the concept of influencers
Yeah.
starts in that way, where I am an influencer in my community, which is maybe just my friends and family. That's it. If I am influencing them by at least not using a water bottle, a straw, throwing away trash in front of everyone, by just limiting myself in that way, then they themselves could be the next influencers for their community, for their friends and families, you know? And I feel like the word influencers with an I has been so much used to the point where people think it's only focused on social media or so many things, but our amazing influencers in our lives, the people that really influenced us, are our teachers, our parents, as I said, my mother. So, quick story. My teacher was the one that really inspired me to get into biology, because he was the best biology teacher ever for me. So I got into biology. I sucked on everything, but biology was my thing, you know? So after biology, I loved my teacher on environmentalism. And then after environment, when I got into the Ministry of Environment, I loved my supervisor, who's here at the CVF, the secretariat. So like after that work, I was working in different places that really inspired me to keep on in this fight. So I think influencing is not limited to only social media, even though it's a very good tool.
Yeah.
I think in our day-to-day life, we are normal beings living in our normal life, and then that could be inspired to make a change in our own way. And I think influencers, making yourself believe that you are an influencer, which is an environmental influencer, has a huge potential in your daily life, and could potentially change your individual efforts into much more better impacts.
Yeah. And as we wrap up, unfortunately, what are the two things that would make you say this COP was successful?
Whew. That was a hard
Just
one.
two things.
Two things.
Yeah.
Well, I hope first and foremost for some of the negotiations that has been held off for the 27th to progress at least a little bit, especially on adaptation.
Yeah.
I know there has been few progress in GGA,
Yeah.
but
It was actually a report.
yeah. So alignment in that work is really, really, really essential.
Yeah.
Because it also feeds off to loss and damage, where a lot of our countries, like ours, in Africa, our continent, has been facing a lot of issues, including drought, and infestation, water, rain, complications and stuff.
Yeah.
And we really need to be able to at least progress into agreements in that field, especially adaptation.
Yeah.
And for the second part, is it for me or for
For you. In this COP.
Secondly, I would really love it if I keep myself motivated after this, because I remember when I went back from COP23,
Yeah.
I felt like I was just drained. I didn't feel like I did something good. I was just like in meetings, and I saw a new country. But I'm in a much more better headspace. I'm much more optimism this time. I have much more better optimistic
Yeah.
optimism
Optimism. Yes.
optimism
Yes.
than ever,
Yeah.
especially about the COP, because there has been good strides on COP26, and I hope when I go back home again and talk about maybe in meetings or even in conversations how is COP, I'd be like, there is hope in this COP.
There is.
Oh, there is hope in this COP.
There is hope in this cup. Nice one, Cliff.
Yeah.
Well, it was lovely to have you on the set, and I'll be sure to link your socials and everything else about your work. So if anyone would like to support or join the movement, they can reach out to you directly.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for the invitation again.
No, I
It was
really
a very good
had a good time
conversation.
speaking to you.
Thank you.
Awesome. And it's a wrap.